Fazbear Entertainment is the company around which everything revolves within the FNAF franchise. This company started in a small Fazbear's family diner and somehow escalated into a multi-level pizzaplex mall worth millions. But have you ever stopped to think about how they could afford this? Or how do they make their money? And even more interesting, should Fazbear Entertainment have gone bankrupt? In today's video, you'll learn everything there is to know about Fazbear Entertainment and what they're truly worth.
We're going to have so much fun together.
So when choosing a starting point for the Fazbear brand and name, it makes sense to begin with Fredbear's Family Diner. I know there's speculation about the history between William Afton and Henry's previous businesses, but it's all speculation. To ensure maximum potential accuracy, we will start where we, as players, can observe the wealth of Fazbear Entertainment. In FNAF 4, there are 6 main characters: Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, Foxy, and Bonnie. We physically see the Fredbear costume in the Bite of 83, and we see Purple Guy putting the Spring Bonnie costume on someone. We also know Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy exist because of their appearances in Fredbear and Friends and their own merchandise in the Crying Child's room. So, it's time to assess how much these animatronics are worth. Well, if you look at a real company called Garner Holt Productions, they state animatronics can cost around $1 million at the high end. We know the FNAF animatronics are tall, capable of singing, and movement, meaning it's safe to assume that the Fazbear animatronics would qualify as high-end animatronics. With 6 animatronics, Fazbear Entertainment owns $6 million worth of animatronics. However, that's in the modern day. If we adjust for inflation, each animatronic would be worth around $317,000. This means our new net worth for the animatronics is around $1.9 million. But something within these animatronics could be worth even more: the patent Fazbear Entertainment would own for the Springlock costumes. This patent could potentially be a significant source of revenue for Fazbear Entertainment, as it would allow them to license the technology to other companies or use it in their own products. It may shock some of you because we know what they did to William Afton, but taking a step back and assessing their value to a company like Fazbear's might change your mind. Springlocks, a unique feature of Fazbear Entertainment's animatronics, allow employees to push the endoskeleton inside the animatronic costume aside so someone can wear them. From a business standpoint, this is a game changer. Now, families can pay to see the animatronics on stage, but if they hand over a bit more dough, an employee wearing the costume of a kid's favorite animatronic could provide a more personalized and engaging experience. This could potentially increase customer satisfaction and brand loyalty, and therefore revenue for Fazbear Entertainment. Anyone from Billy the janitor to Stacy the chef can hop in the costume and put on a show. Heck, consider the alternative. Restaurants either don't provide the special party package or have to spend on higher salaries for trained employees who know how to use these mechanisms. Companies that want to use this technology could be forced to share a percentage of the revenue or pay a hefty fee up front. The invention of the Springlocks is a criminally underrated aspect of the Fazbear Entertainment business model. However, there's another vital component of the Fazbear franchise that we don't often discuss: that being real estate. We know that in 1983, Fazbear Entertainment owned Fredbear's Family Diner and another location where the Fazbear crew, Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, and Foxy, were on display. But if we were to inject a tiny bit of reality into this, a small pizza chain with 2 restaurants having a locally broadcasted show titled Fazbear and Friends and large amounts of merchandise doesn't make sense. A company this small wouldn't have nearly enough money to afford something of this magnitude. This is why I believe there are more Fazbear locations than we know. Other evidence that there's more is Fazbear Fright seeming to take place in an abandoned pizzeria, and FNAF 2's pizzeria being a renovated location. But that doesn't answer the question of how many pizzerias does Fazbear Entertainment own. To find an answer, I looked at Fazbear Entertainment's real-life comparison with Chuck E. Cheese. This company had a business model similar to Fazbear's, with both offering pizza and entertainment. Chuck E. Cheese also opened locations in Utah, where most theorists believe FNAF takes place. In total, Chuck E. Cheese has had 7 locations within the state. This implies that there were 7 different locations where the local economy could have supported a pizzeria with an animatronic show for entertainment. However, this can't be the final amount of pizzerias. In the 1980s, Utah had an average population of 1.5 million, and that's extremely low, considering it's the 11th largest state in the US. So, it would be difficult for a small Utah business like Fazbear Entertainment to have a cartoon show with as much cultural impact as implied in the games, which is why I went to the books in search of an answer. Within the Silver Ash trilogy, it's implied that Fazbear Entertainment never leaves the confines of Hurricane, Utah. There's a small diner, Fredbear's Family Diner, and a much larger Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria. If you were to go off the Silver Ash trilogy alone, you would assume there are no Fazbear pizzerias outside the ones we see in the games. But that would ignore another piece of FNAF literature, the Fazbear Frights. In the Frights, Freddy Fazbear merchandise is sold all over the United States, and there are even pizzerias open on the East Coast. As you can see, Utah is on the West Coast, considerably far from the East Coast of the US. This means that within the Frights, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria is loved by fans from all across the nation. Balancing these two, I think it's safe to assume that there are 20 Freddy Fazbear Pizzeria locations across the West Coast. There could be locations within Utah and bordering states like Colorado, Nevada, Wyoming, and Idaho. For the sake of this video, I will just use the 20 number, but this is just a rough estimate. With 20 locations across multiple states, Fazbear Entertainment has just unlocked a new, valuable asset: real estate. To calculate the value of these locations, I looked for an available restaurant space in Hurricane, Utah, and found one selling at $506 per square foot. While we don't know the exact square footage of a Fazbear Pizzeria, we can assume that they are similar in size to their real-life counterpart, Chuck E. Cheese. According to Google, the average square footage of a Chuck E. Cheese pizzeria is 13,250 square feet. This means that if we multiply 13,250 by $506 per square foot, we get a total value of $6.7 million. Once again, we have to adjust that number for inflation in 1983, which comes to $2.13 million. Now that's no small amount. Multiplying that by 20 shows us the final and astounding value of Fazbear Entertainment's real estate portfolio, just under $43 million. In case you were wondering, that's $135 million today. Fazbear Entertainment has no shortage of cash to play with. But before we go further into the future of Fazbear Entertainment's business, let's take a look at some of the moneymakers we know restaurants use. Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria sells pizza. It's in the name. And when ranking the profit margins for selling pizza, it falls on the higher end, around 10%. What also makes pizza lucrative is that it's high in sodium, meaning you'll be thirsty while eating it. Conveniently, soda has a profit margin of around 50%. So, Freddy and the gang are rolling in dough, both literally and financially. They have an impressive real estate portfolio, great profit margins on food, and the technology behind their animatronics is another revenue source. But there's one more lucrative area that I haven't covered, and that's merchandise. Every character in the Fazbear crew probably has plushies, shirts, action figures, hats, and other toys that kids love. While we don't know how many items Fazbear sold, we do know that they were limited to physical retail. In the early 1980s, online shopping had just become accessible to companies far larger than Fazbear Entertainment. This means that the online component of shopping can't be factored into our calculations. So, if Fazbear's was selling their merch over the counter in local toy stores and as prizes for arcade games, we can assume they were raking in big bucks. I will guesstimate a yearly revenue of $742,000 per restaurant. This means that in 1983, in 1 year, Fazbear's could have made $14.8 million off of merchandise and arcade game tokens alone. By the way, that number is adjusted for inflation. In 2024, that would be approximately $46.6 million. But if you've been paying attention, there's one large part of Fazbear's business model in 1983 that I am ignoring, and that's the cartoon. To be honest, I think that Fazbear Entertainment viewed the cartoon as a marketing cost. I got a lot of different numbers for what it would cost to hire a studio to make a cartoon, but I could just average all the numbers to get $8,500 per minute of 2D animation. I adjusted that number for inflation and got $2,700 per minute of animation. But an idea hit me as I sat there thinking about what I would do if I were a frugal company like Fazbear's. What if Fazbear's gave the IP licensing to an animation studio for free and demanded no profits? They would let the studio handle the cost of the employees, and Fazbear's would just benefit from the publicity that this show brought. For this reason, I view the Fredbear and Friends cartoon as a massive net zero financially for Fazbear Entertainment. All the benefits they received were increased foot traffic and merch sales. Crazy to think that that's just the year 1983, because we need to move forward to the creation of Circus Baby's Pizza World. While the exact year William Afton created Circus Baby's Pizza World is unknown, I will just guess it's 1985. I have a personal theory, and I will just use it because I can. I assume that William Afton built or repurposed a Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria for the restaurant. Assuming it's the same size as an average Freddy Fazbear's, it would have an estimated value of around $2.3 million. That number is adjusted for inflation to the year 1985. The Funtime animatronics are also challenging to assess in terms of their value. They are worth over $1 million a piece, and you could argue the number is far beyond that due to the features William added. But using the baseline $1 million and adjusting it for inflation, you get $343,000. So, if William has Funtime Freddy, Baby, Funtime Foxy, Ballora, and Funtime Chica, he has $1.7 million in animatronics. But every FNAF fan knows that Circus Baby's Pizza World closes after Elizabeth's death. William Afton then builds an underground bunker where he stores the animatronics. If William were to sell the pizzeria for the $2.3 million price tag and use it on the bunker, sister location doesn't seem so impossible. While finding an exact quote per square foot for building an underground bunker was difficult, $400 per square foot made the most sense considering considering how advanced Sister Location is. We can also assume that William Afton built a pizzeria underground, so that 13,250 square feet would be multiplied by $400. So it would cost $5.3 million in 2024 and $1.8 million in 1985. It's crazy to imagine that with these numbers, building an underground pizzeria is cheaper than buying one above ground. For that reason, I am adding a $1 million stuff fee. This fee would pay for running electricity, ventilation systems, employee salaries, and anything else I forgot. I imagine that William used his finances to run this place rather than Fazbear Entertainment's fortune. But with William's secret project now in the rearview mirror, we can move on to Five Nights at Freddy's 2 in 1987. This location was the grand reopening of Freddy Fazbear's. Fazbears had fallen into the dumpster because of William Afton's murder spree. While we don't know the full extent of Fazbear's closing, I imagine the negative PR caused the company to shut down its locations for a time. The reopening of Fazbears with toy animatronics was an attempt to establish customer trust. If Fazbear could market these new animatronics as the perfect solution to stopping criminals, parents would feel safe taking their kids there. If we're being honest, the criminal detection system could have been a load of baloney. It might not exist, but the effect of renewing the public's trust in the company is very real. So Fazbear repurposed an old location and created 4 new animatronics: Toy Bonnie, Toy Freddy, Toy Chica, and Balloon Boy, and Mangle. These 4 animatronics are worth around $1 million each, but in 1987 they would be worth around $362,000 each. However, there's one large question I haven't answered yet. What happened to the other locations Fazbear Entertainment owned? While there isn't a clear answer as to what they did, there are 3 different routes that they could have gone down. The first route is for Fazbear Entertainment to shut down their locations and permanently close them. They would become run down and derelict with no one caring for them. The other option is for Henry Emily to become a real estate mogul. He could convert the restaurants into offices or retail stores, or perhaps just lease out the space for new restaurants to use. Either way, he could bring in passive income from tenants paying rent to use the location for whatever they wanted. The third option is for Henry to just sell everything and cash out. I mentioned earlier that Fazbear Entertainment's real estate portfolio was under $43 million in 1983. In 1987, the land could have been worth $49 million. So either Henry holds on to the land or cashes out. The point is, Henry, Emily, and Fazbear Entertainment still have a lot of capital to work with. While we all know that Henry's attempt to revive the franchise in 1987 ended with more dead kids, he still has the land. Sure, merch sales probably weren't performing as well as they once had, but Henry's attempt in 1993 to revive the franchise again wouldn't have dented his wallet too much. According to Up Menu, operating a small-sized pizzeria could cost initially $50,000 to $100,000, and all costs onward vary. We don't know how many employees Freddy Fazbear's had and the operating budget. It probably doesn't even matter. Henry likely kept this place afloat because he wasn't ready to let his dream die. But skipping forward to FNAF 3, where Fazbear Frights is built inside an existing pizzeria, or so we think. Many theories and opinions exist on whether FNAF 3 takes place in an old Fazbear's pizzeria or a renovated space. For the sake of this video, I will pretend it's an old Fazbear's location that was condemned. Phone Dude and his buddies fixed the place just enough to get past regulations and open it as a horror attraction. I imagine they did the same with the FNAF 1 location, entering a location that was condemned to find souvenirs and, most importantly, Springtrap. Interestingly, this reflects poorly on Henry Emily's real estate portfolio that we discussed earlier. If Henry is letting his property fall into disrepair, it could mean he isn't keeping up with the maintenance and that there are no tenants at these locations. So, out of the hypothetical 20 locations I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I will remove 2 because they've fallen into disrepair or he no longer owns them. This means Fazbear Entertainment's new real estate total in 2023, the year we believe FNAF 3 takes place, would be at a minimum of $118 million. That's still a crazy amount of money. And after FNAF 3, we know Henry opens the simulated pizzeria in Pizzeria Simulator. While some believe it's a renovated Fredbear's Family Diner, there isn't any solid evidence to back that claim. So for this video, I will assume he renovated one of his 18 locations to complete his mission. Everyone knows that the game ends with the pizzeria going up in flames and Henry taking his own life. So that leaves 17 locations of unknown quality and 1 location that was set on fire, but still on a sizable piece of land. It also leaves the Fazbear name and brand open to whoever claims it. While we don't know who claims it, there are theories of it being Clara Afton, a wealthy former franchise fan, or an investor looking to make a quick buck. No matter your theory, this person still claims the franchise and has an interesting plan. They created the Help Wanted game to cover up their history, and I don't have a solid number regarding how much it costs to create a VR game. Some sources say that it's in the low millions, others stating it could be in the tens of millions. So to be safe, I will assume that the Help Wanted game broke even. Within the real world, Help Wanted had a gross revenue of at least $7 million just with sales on Steam. We have no idea how much they made from PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo sales. With that at a total net zero, it's time to discuss the Fazbear Funtime rental service. While most fans know FNAF AR for being the cool app with microtransactions, in the games universe, it is a real service where customers can order Fazbear animatronics to their homes. Trick Theory, another channel that attempted to theorize about FNAF's net worth, took the total number of users who downloaded the AR app and counted them as real-world customers. This isn't a bad idea. But if we're being realistic, most people who downloaded it only did because it was free. If customers had to pay the standard rate for a party service rental, that number would be much lower. So, I took the 10 million users who have downloaded the app over the past 4 years and applied a 2% conversion rate. If you're confused, a conversion rate is the percentage of users who downloaded an app and made an in-app purchase. 2% of 10 million users making a purchase leaves us with 200,000 rentals. Next, we need to solve how much an animatronic rental would cost. Like Trick Theory said in their video, this service has no real-world equivalent, but party rentals have been around for a long time. So I decided to take the price of something else people rent for kids' parties, bouncy houses. These air-filled attractions can cost anywhere from $200 to $225 for 6 hours. I assumed that Fazbear would charge a rate like $225 because delivery for these things would not be cheap. So that means 200,000 orders at $225 an order is $45 million in gross revenue. This is quite a bit for a franchise fighting to regain relevancy. Combine that $45 million with the $118 million in real estate, and Fazbear Entertainment has $163 million before any taxes or operating costs are considered. For the sake of argument, let's assume Fazbear Entertainment sells 16 of its remaining 17 locations and keeps the FNAF 6 location to build on. This means that they would have sold $111 million in real estate. Now, you smart viewers are probably wondering if I will be considering taxes. The answer is no. And the reason is that Fazbear Entertainment will build the Pizzaplex and mark its cost as a loss. The Pizzaplex is fictional, so it's impossible to know how large this place is. So I used the Mall of America as my reference point. This mall is the largest in the Western Hemisphere and perfectly fits as a reference point for the Pizzaplex. The Mall of America has a gross area of 5.6 million square feet. With one half of the equation solved, it's time to calculate how much Fazbear would have to pay in construction costs per square foot. While narrowing a perfect price was difficult, the best and most consistent answer I saw for constructing a mall was $400 per square foot. Doing the math, it would have cost Fazbear Entertainment $2.2 billion to pull this off. And this doesn't include the cost of employees, animatronics, staff bot production, merchandise, and decorations. But does this mean the Pizzaplex is impossible for Fazbear to build? It depends. Companies taking out large billion-dollar loans is not unheard of. Companies like Ford, Comcast, and AT&T have billions of dollars in debt. However, these companies can take loans of this size because of their valuation and assets. It's easier for me to lend $100 to someone who has made $1 million rather than someone who's never earned a single penny. So, is it impossible for a bank or wealthy investor to give Fazbear Entertainment the money for this project? No, but it is extremely unlikely. This is why a project like this might leave Fazbear Entertainment with big red zeros in their bank account.